Duke's unprecedented success under Mike Elko was sadly very short-lived. The Blue Devils went 17-9 these last 2 years with back-to-back bowl wins after going just 10-25 the 3 years prior to Elko. But he has moved on to greener pastures, taking the head coaching job at Texas A&M, and now the Manny Diaz era begins at Duke. So welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, guys. We're so glad you could join us today to break down Duke's schedule and record, their full prediction for this season. As always, please continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and check out everything down in the description below, including our website, thegridironexpert.com, home of our expert picks. Some of the best picks in the entire country, guys. One of the lowest prices in the entire country. We do that for a reason, because we want you to win big with us. We want you to join our GE Nation. The earlier you sign up, the better, because there's tons of exclusive content over there for you. So go check it out. And check out our mailing address to send us some of your team's gear. We don't have any Duke gear behind us. We'd love to add more ACC gear. Love to add some Duke gear. Just like everything we have back here has been sent in by you guys, the fans, the members of the GE Nation. So if you want to represent your team, send it to us to that mailing address. We'll give you that shout out and expand our GE Nation from coast to coast as we get closer to the start of this season. So the Manny Diaz era, guys, that's honestly a pretty underrated hire. People kind of scoffed at it when it happened. They looked at what he did at Miami, which wasn't all that great, but it also wasn't as bad as people think. He's a great defensive mind, did phenomenal things as the defensive coordinator at Penn State, and now gets another crack at being a head coach, trying to continue the success that Mike Elko left behind. Obviously, that's easier said than done. A lot of players left Duke with Mike Elko, whether it was to follow him, to transfer out, to go pro, whatever it may have been. But it's going to be a bit of a rebuilding process. To expect Manny Diaz to continue that success immediately, that's not realistic. You take a look at the offense. Riley Leonard, the star quarterback at Duke, is gone, off to Notre Dame. So in comes Malik Murphy, the transfer quarterback out of Texas. A very good pickup for Duke that I think in time is going to pan out very well for them. They do lose Jordan Waters, transferring within the conference over to NC State, but they did keep Jaquez Moore, who rushed for over 670 yards last year. They keep their top wide receiver in Jordan Moore, who had over 830 yards and 8 touchdowns last year. So skill positions is pretty solid. They've got a capable quarterback that thinks can be better than people think. The problem is the trenches. Duke loses 4 offensive linemen. They only had 5 offensive linemen available in the spring. It's a huge concern up front. That skill position, the quarterback position, it's not going to matter if they don't have time to deliver because the offensive line's so bad. Defensively, Manny Diaz's strength, 5 starters are back. And I will say that the back 7, I think, is pretty dang solid. They returned their top 2 tacklers in Trey Freeman at the linebacking position, also returned Jalen Stinson at safety. But the biggest concern for Duke is their defensive line. They lost all 5 of their top defensive linemen from last year. If you can't win at the line of scrimmage, you're going to have a hard time winning any sort of games. And those are the 2 biggest glaring weaknesses for Duke, is their weakness on the offensive line and their weakness on the defensive line. You take a look at the schedule and what Duke's up against, it is a brutal schedule for anybody, but especially for a team that is kind of wearing thin and dealing with a brand new head coach. I mean, you look at that. You've got Virginia Tech, you've got NC State, Miami, SMU, Florida State. They're playing all these top dogs in the ACC, and Duke, unlike what they had last year and the year before, isn't really stacked up to compete against those teams. They'll open up the year with a win against Elon. Not worried about that. Great opportunity for the team to get under Manny Diaz, see what this team's about, work out any issues they have before they go to Northwestern for an intriguing power matchup here. 2 power teams facing off with an interesting stadium, I should say, as Northwestern's undergoing their renovations. You know, the Wildcats were a surprise team last year. Started off really slow, so slow that Duke did beat them 38-14 earlier in the year. The Wildcats, though, then won 6 of their final 8 games, including a bowl win over Utah. David Braun did a phenomenal job considering everything Northwestern was dealing with right before the start of the season. But they are going to take a step back. That type of success isn't going to be maintained. I'm not saying Northwestern's a one-hit wonder, but don't expect them to go win 7 or 8 games like they did last year. However, they will get their revenge against Duke. I like this Northwestern team enough to be a Duke team that's still trying to find their identity. 15 starters back from Northwestern. They add Mike Wright, a transfer quarterback in from Vanderbilt and Mississippi State. Their leading rusher, Cam Porter, does return as well. They've got continuity at the head coaching position. They've got the home field advantage, even though it might not be all that great. Northwestern and Duke, it's going to be an ugly game, but the Wildcats get the win. Duke drops to 1-1, but I want to make them 3-1 heading into the final week of September. I think they're going to get past UConn. And I think they're going to get past Middle Tennessee. An interesting road game there, but I do think they're going to get past the Blue Raiders in their first year under Derek Mason. Now they get into conference play. That's when things get interesting. Big game against North Carolina, a matchup where they've lost 5 straight. And they've had some heartbreakers in there. The Blue Devils had a loss by 2 last year in double overtime. They lost 38-35 in 2022. They've been so close to beating their in-state rival. Haven't been able to get over the hump. Hey, there's still always basketball season, though. That's always around the corner. This North Carolina team, though, everybody thinks that he consists of one player, right? When Drake May left to go to the NFL, everybody's like, oh, North Carolina's done for. They're not going to be any good because they lost Drake May. And that's not true. Are they going to have as great quarterback production as they did with May? No. But Max Johnson, the transfer in from the SEC, LSU and Texas A&M, he's going to play just fine if he can stay healthy. Omarion Hampton is one of the best running backs in the ACC. He's going to do just fine. Duke allowed 179 rushing yards to North Carolina last year. Omarion Hampton ran all over them last year. North Carolina now has 7 starters back on defense. You want to point fingers, say UNC doesn't have a good defense? You're right, but they're going to have a better defense than Duke. I can tell you that. The Tar Heels are going to win this game at Duke, even though it's not really a true road game whenever these two teams play each other. But UNC does win, and I'm afraid it's not going to be a one-possession game like it has been each of the last 2 years. And then go on the road to Georgia Tech. They will fall to Georgia Tech. This could be a blowout because Brent Key is building something special in Atlanta. The Yellow Jackets have a very difficult schedule too, so they might not win, 7, 8, 9 games that they want to, but this should still be a bowl team, and they have one heck of an offense. Haynes King returning at quarterback, Jamal Haynes back at running back, tons of pass catchers returning, average over 400 yards per game and over 200 rushing yards per game. This is a Georgia Tech defense that isn't all that great, but I don't think Duke's offense is going to have a way to exploit it. So on the road in Atlanta, this type of offense, I think the Yellow Jackets run wild, literally, on Duke. Kind of beat them handily. And heading into the bye week, the Blue Devils are sitting at 3-3. Their reward for getting their week of rest is coming back home, staying home, and playing Florida State, the reigning ACC champions, who the Blue Devils have never defeated, by the way. 0-22. Never defeated the Seminoles, and it definitely will not be this year. And it definitely will not be anything like the game we saw last year, where Duke, who at the time was ranked 16th in the country, traveled to Tallahassee to take on the 4th-ranked Seminoles. That game was close for a while before Riley Leonard went down with that injury. Then the Seminoles pulled away to win 38-20. Won't be like that this year. Florida State should win convincingly. It's just an unfortunate draw for the Blue Devils to once again draw one of the top teams in the conference. Coming out of that, though, they take on SMU. This is an interesting game to me. SMU is an interesting game to me. A trap game for the Mustangs. SMU's good guys. They've got a lot of talent. First year in the ACC, but they're expecting to contend. I believe they can. But I have a feeling that SMU's just going to kind of sleepwalk through this game. They don't have a couple tough games before this. I can see them kind of overlooking Duke, thinking, hey, they're not that great. Let's go past this. But it's a road game out east, not a close road game either. This is going to be tougher than the Mustangs expect. And I think that this game is close at halftime, midway through the third quarter. Duke's going to be gaining confidence. SMU's going to be panicking. And sure enough, Duke's going to find a way to win this game. One thing that Manny Diaz has always done well as a defensive coordinator, even as a head coach, his secondaries were always good. And we said that the back 7 for Duke this year, that linebacking core and that secondary, is going to be pretty solid. And I look at SMU, they're going to be a pass-happy team. They can run the ball well too, but I think Preston Stone, the quarterback for the Mustangs, makes a handful of mistakes in this game. This is one of those games where Duke wakes up and goes, hey, look, we're not saying we're going to compete big time this year, but we're going to snag a win or two. Maybe we shouldn't, and that's going to come against SMU. That secondary, I think, forces at least 2 turnovers on Preston Stone and the Mustangs. The offensive line holds up just enough against the Mustangs' defensive front, and in a shocker, Manny Diaz gets arguably his signature win of the season, a conference win over the Mustangs, and they are at 500, 4-4, entering the final month of the year, only 2 wins away from a bowl game. It's not impossible until you look at the schedule. Their final month of the year, 3 of those 4 games are on the road. The one that's at home is against a very good Virginia Tech team. And I hate to say it, but Duke is not winning a game in the month of November. They are not beating Miami in the Manny Diaz Bowl. That's going to be a fun storyline. Manny Diaz, the former head coach at Miami, obviously now the coach at Duke, getting to face off. That's going to be a fun storyline to watch. But Miami, Manny Diaz is an afterthought to them. They're not focused on him anymore. They're focused on trying to be back and finally delivering and living up to the expectations. Miami's got one heck of an offense. They are going to torch this Duke defense. Cam Moore, Damian Martinez, Xavier Restrepo, they're going to be just fine On the road, Duke does not stand much of a chance. They then go on the road to NC State. Duke won 24-3 last year, but NC State was playing a carousel of quarterbacks. Now Grayson McCall is in. Jordan Waters is in at running back, transferring from Duke to NC State. So an interesting storyline there as well. But this is an elite North Carolina State team that has a fantastic opportunity to contend for an ACC title. The bye week, you play Virginia Tech, the team that returns the most production in all of college football this year, including 95% of their offensive production. The Hokies are the real deal and could challenge for an ACC title spot. Even though they're off that week of rest, even though it's senior day, the Blue Devils do not stand a chance against this team for Virginia Tech. That is loaded on both sides of the ball. And then on the road at Wake Forest, to me, kind of a toss-up game here. Neither of these teams may have much to play for in that season finale. Wake Forest struggling on both sides of the ball last year, might struggle on both sides of the ball again this year. But I like Hank Bachmeier, the transfer quarterback at Wake Forest. Like him a little bit better right now, especially from an experience standpoint, than Malik Murphy at Duke. I like this solid front seven for Wake Forest. It's funny, the back seven for Duke's pretty solid. The front seven for Wake Forest is pretty solid. That defensive line for Wake Forest, I think, exploits that Duke offensive line. They're going to create pressure on Malik Murphy all day. It's senior day for the Demon Deacons. If they don't have anything to play for, they at least got pride and a way to send their seniors out with a win, and that's what Dave Clawson's squad is going to do. Duke drops that game on the road. Home team, also, I should add, has won 4 straight in this series. Wake Forest, home field advantage. Duke loses 4-8 for the Blue Devils, and that's not ideal, right? And it might come as a shock to some if you look at the past few years. But again, this is a completely different Duke team. A lot of those big-time playmakers the last 2 years are gone. The head coach that got them there, he's gone to Texas A&M. So Manny Diaz is entering a program that has to go through a minor rebuild. But I don't think it will be long. Establish the culture this year. Win an ACC game this year, 4-8. Maybe they flirt and pull off another upset and they flirt with bowl eligibility. Maybe they do. Don't think they'll get there this year, but next year, I think they can take that step forward. I truly do. I truly believe that. Duke is not going to stay down for long. A little bump in the road this year. Next year, year 2 under Diaz, they take that big step forward. But for now, 4-8 in 2024. So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos. Check out everything down in the description below. That includes our website, thegridironexpert.com, home of those expert picks. Go sign up for those today. Do not miss out on the opportunity to get the exclusive content, to win big with us, and to join our GE Nation. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.
Yeah.